And so there's a project that I'm thinking of, wonderful potential wind energy. How much do you think is going to people who need it? Zero.
Oh my gosh, come on. Does that come a lot from the Belt and Road Initiative with China?
They weren't advertising it, but they had become a Bitcoin mining company as well.
That's literally what they do, right? It's checking an ESG box off, essentially.
That's going to be a big part of what unleashes human potential in Africa, which, by the way, is absolutely the future of our humanity. The revenue that they would generate selling their excess energy to us is a game changer for their local communities. Guys, we need another hour.
No.
Bitcoin is modeling that as an instantiation of divine truth through an immutable ledger.
Guys, we had a really cool episode with Ben Kincaid today. Just to date's important here. It's July 13th when we're recording this. By the way, just for context, coming up with the news. But that was probably that was probably my most favorite episode out of all of the ones we've done so far.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It was a good one. It was a good one. It was very interesting stuff going on. Some geopolitics. I like that perspective that he can bring. So yeah,
geopolitical, global supply chain action, and of course Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. Not too much about mining fundamentals, but more so mining in application and how it can be used to service more of those third world pockets of the globe, in particular, where they're honing in on Africa. And of course, he'll get into more of why that is in the meat and potatoes of the episode. Our conversation with him was great. So thank you, Connor, for brokering that and getting him on. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was more about the kind of the startup side, I guess, of a business like that. So a lot of interesting insights there. One thing I just did want to make clear, and we're going to talk about it in the episode, but we look at the way a lot of these businesses operate in these developing economies, and there seems to be something of a I don't know what you would call it, taking advantage of basically charity and foreign direct investments.
Taboo.
Yeah, not necessarily getting to the places that they need to go, and so the reason some of these developing economies offer so much is basically not that the economies themselves do, or that there's natural resources there, but it's all the charity aid that is then just ending up back, in these businesses. But it's what Ben Kincaid's company is doing and what a lot of these Bitcoin miners are doing is so different. What they're really offering is they're helping these economies grow. Like, how would you say this? They're helping these economies grow because they're actually giving them something that's valuable.
So essentially what they're doing is they're looking for places where renewable energy resources have been established, but the transmission to the masses or to the local populace has not yet been introduced or well established. So they'll go in there, make the repairs, figure out what's essential for that particular community for them to thrive and survive. And then whatever that community is not going to use, they're going to use miners to mine Bitcoin with that energy, essentially helping the grid establish that connectivity and proof that it can work. And then as the grid gets more robust and there's more of a demand from the local populace using it, that's when they will step out from mining and go to the next place that needs grid services or electrical transmission to the local populace.
I think it's
essentially this difference between giving a handout and saying, okay, then you can work for me, So these countries are now able to offer something. I think what he said is monetizing. They're basically monetizing the stranded energy, which if they weren't there would just go to waste anyway because there's no demand, there's no customer. So they're coming in to be the customer, and now these countries have both a way to make money off of the investments, but also to to give value. So I found that side of it interesting.
A lot of cool conversations about just some of the players on the geopolitical stage, including China, Russia, the EU and just all of those things that those countries are doing in conjunction with just businesses that want to get involved with Africa to check an ESG box on their earnings. It's kind of a ESG is an interesting subject. I think we should definitely do an episode about it sometime, just to explain how it's being used to politicize things, but also like how it could benefit people. Because I think that's a double-edged sword. In principle, it's a good idea, but in practice, it's not actually being applied. And some of the components of ESG, it's just so unattainable. It's ridiculous. Like how are we all going to have the same carbon footprint the way we get to work? Like we don't all live in New York City. We can't all walk. So it's those little things that with ESG that kind of drive me up a wall personally, but it's not a bad idea. It just has to get applied better and more practically.
All right. Well, anyway, if you're this far into the episode, you'll definitely listen to the rest and hear our actual conversation. In the meantime, though, any interesting news?
So, as I said, the date's important. XRP, rejoice, rejoice. Again, I say rejoice. You are officially not a security, as we kind of already knew for a long time, but I guess now, so let it be written, so let it be done. They won their case, and not. I guess the market is definitely reacting bullish because of it. I saw Ethereum go over the 2K mark, which hasn't for a bit while we were recording, and I'm like, this is interesting because I don't know how much Bitcoin's going to get propped up in light of this, but all the projects underneath it are definitely going to feast for a bit. Haven't had a win like this in a while. I don't know what you guys think, but it's refreshing.
So I think there's a little nuance. I don't know if you guys saw. I shared that screenshot of an article in there. They said that the sale of XRP on public exchanges is not in violation of securities laws. And the article I was reading said that it was, kind of this blind bid ask system, so that it didn't, whatever, have this expectation of profit. However, there is, and I wonder if there'll be more lawsuits here, but the court said that the private investments, so when Ripple approached hedge funds to, kind of seed investment into XRP, that these violated securities laws. These were investment contracts. Here, there was this expectation of profits that, Ripple pitched to these companies in order to get their investment. And so I'm really intrigued to see how this, as this kind of court ruling develops and how it sets precedent. I wonder how this is going to affect a lot of cryptos, right? Because a lot of people say Bitcoin was fine because there's no pre-mine. It was, it's this proof of work thing. But then with this idea of like being publicly traded being fine, I wonder if they'd look at any token that launched where, just on Uniswap, right? If there's no pre-sale, no things like that, I wonder how they might look at that as well. So
that's why we need Mark Yusko on the podcast. This is why we need the regulation guy to come on the podcast. Sent you all DMs, so just throwing that out there. There's a lot of questions Matt just asked there that could be answered from those types of conversations with those kind of individuals. But all in time, dominoes will fall slowly but surely in terms of getting guests. And we got a good one. What other news has been happening? Anything in Bitcoin ordinal world? Matt, you've been filling us in. I've been waiting for the saga every week for my Bitcoin ordinal update.
Gosh. I don't think any ordinal specific things. I really enjoyed, and I shared it with you guys. I've shared it with a few other people as well. What's his username? Super Testnet on Twitter.
Oh yeah,
he's a big Bitcoin builder, and he had done a presentation for a Bitcoin startup labs where he was presenting Bitcoin as an alternative to tokenomics. And so I just thought it was really cool summary that he was showing a lot of the incentive structures that, people use tokens to create. He made the case that just about every incentive can be created on Bitcoin itself without the need to like mint new tokens and things like that. And so I thought that was super interesting, but otherwise I don't think there's much news.
Mashinsky got arrested. Celsius guy. I forgot about that.
Did he get arrested, or was he just indicted?
Is that
synonymous?
Alex Mashinsky was arrested. And SEC files security fraud charges. So I hope that he is getting a seat warm for SBF right next to him, along with Voyager. Guys, so Voyager allowed us to claim our funds, and holy smokes, the fees they charged for us to move crypto to other wallets, and it hasn't even hit the wallets yet. It's criminal what they're doing. I don't know if they're like waiting. And so I moved all of my stuff a couple days ago into like my respective wallets, my hardware wallets, etc. You know how I'm not keeping stuff on exchanges anymore these days. It says that you need to have it out by the 23rd, but I literally did it, and I have no proof of the funds. Like it shows that I transferred them on the Voyager app, whatever app they've salvaged together, but it's just ridiculous. They've converted anything that you couldn't move to USDC. So all my Polkadot got converted to USDC without me even approving it. It's so messy, and I never want to deal with this again. I never want anybody to have to deal with this again. It's very frustrating, and I want to give it to people here in the real time, because I bet it's going to be like 12:59 on like the 23rd, and then it will all go. But it's just very shady, if that makes sense. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
I mean, it is. But it's just like shady. Those guys should be in jail too, though, with SBF and Alex Mashinsky. So
imagine if you had an affiliate link for Voyager or something.
Hell,
exactly. No, that'd be great.
No. And Do Kwon can be in the cell next to them too.
Yeah.
See, I still I don't know. I feel like I'm a little on the fence about Do Kwon. I'm sure
actually am. I'm actually pro Do Kwon.
Really?
Are you? I'm on the fence.
Did he just want to go to church with his family?
No, and so I'm not.
Wait, hold on. What did I miss? What did you say?
No, he's saying like the Alexa.
I said it was like the did Do Kwon just want to go to church with his family also?
Oh, like a Tornado Cash guy.
Yeah. Tornado Cash reference there.
No, so I think I don't. He may have done shady things in the background of I don't know, some of the companies that he ran, but I don't think like he should be held responsible for Luna Terra collapsing. Like I think that it was just the way that it was built. It ran exactly how it was built. And it was a shaky thing. It was experimental. It got really big, and then it failed of its own causes, right? So like Celsius, they faked the numbers, right? They did not have all of the crypto that they were saying they had, and they were giving to people as rewards. Everything Terra Luna, it was public, right? Everybody knew, it was a blockchain. You read the white paper. This is how it's set up. And the one way it could collapse is if, I don't know how many people were talking about
it. Just doesn't. Yeah, it just doesn't count as fraud, though.
That's good. That's good analysis.
The way it would collapse, right?
Yeah, and people are mad because they lost money, but it's like, but you invested. That's just how it works. You don't.
You invested in this algorithmic stable. I mean, I'd be mad too. Yeah, but I don't think that the blame could.
If anybody has a reason to be mad, it's me. Trust me.
Yeah, I was about to say Connor probably lost more than anybody I've ever met in that fiasco.
But the same way that you can't blame, Brazil's CBDC on Vitalik because they copied some of his code, right? Like no, it was built, it was made public, and people, did stuff with it as they wanted.
Basically, moral of the story here is there's actual fraud, and then there's just terribly constructed blockchains.
Yeah.
The second moral of the story, though, and I know we're just like, we're out of time. We got to get into the episode, but just look back. I mean, I wasn't joking about the affiliate link thing. Celsius, Voyager, FTX, like these were serious, well-respected players. Like what, a year ago? Less? I mean, well, FTX,
Super Bowl.
When did FTX happen?
Over a year now.
Yeah.
Last summer.
So I mean, you just have to recognize that, and you can't take anything for granted in this space. So just be aware of that. That's all I'm saying.
Awesome. Well, let's get into the episode. Ben Kincaid was a great guest. We'll put all the links and stuff for his company in the description. Wow, brain fart there. If you haven't done this already, please like, comment, review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe wherever podcasts are found. And we just appreciate everybody who has been listening to us, and we hope you all enjoy this conversation from Bridger Solutions. All right, everybody. Joining us on the Crypto Conversion Podcast today, we have Ben Kincaid, who is sporting an incredible background. As he admitted, he wished it was fake, or wished he could say it was fake, but that's the real thing. Matt and I do not get that kind of background in the Midwest, which is why you just get our walls. But you know what? We will carry on the way we always do. And Ben, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. How are you doing today? We're excited to have you on. This should be an interesting episode for everybody.
Doing great. I'm excited to be here with you guys, and blessed to be here. Y'all come down and visit us here in the Dominican Republic.
We'll do.
Yeah, we will do. Bucket list item for sure. So
your taxpayer money is going into where I'm sitting, so you should take advantage.
Oh, is that how it works?
Not usually, but the invitation is there.
So you live in Dominican Republic, like full time? That's your your residence?
I do, yeah. So the story is we moved here last fall. My wife works as a foreign service officer, a diplomat at the U.S. Embassy here in the capital city of Dominican Republic. We were a foreign service family, tandem couple. That's what I used to do until I left about a year ago. But thankfully, we've got one member of the family that's still earning money, and she's given me a long leash to pursue my dream in Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining while she's bringing home the bacon. So I really appreciate her, and I'm super blessed to be here in DR, and we'll be here for another about 2 years. Usually assignments for us are 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Bitcoin and diplomacy. Awesome. We're gonna get some spicy takes. I like where this is going.
That's very great. So to start off, how did you get into Bitcoin?
Yeah,
what brought you out of service.
Yeah. So I first became interested in Bitcoin while I was still in the foreign service. In fact, I was just home from a 2-year assignment in Kinshasa, Congo, which is central part of Africa. And that was just as COVID was breaking out. The world didn't know what was going on. Folks were getting evacuated, if we that lived overseas. And I had just landed, and we had found a place to roost stateside. Turned out to be Richmond, Virginia, where we had to hang tight for a while. And I think that was that April 2020 period. So instead of immediately kind of turning around and getting ready for that next assignment, everything was on standstill, and that was a number of months. You guys remember? So April 2020. If you remember, the market had just done its thing, had crashed. And had taken all assets, kind of with it, to include Bitcoin. A buddy of mine who I had worked with for a long time and is now a co-founder of our company, gave me a call and he said, "Hey Ben, have you heard of this thing called Bitcoin?" And I said, "Yeah, I've heard of it." He said, "Listen, you should look into it. You should think about picking one or two of them up. Super low price right now, and these are all the reasons why I think it's going to be amongst the first to really appreciate in value once the market turns around." So that was kind of it, and I trusted him. At that point, I was thinking that this would just be a good trade, and I picked a little bit up. And as you guys know, what happens when you pick something up, when you buy something, you've got skin in the game, and you start really trying to understand what this thing is, and that's what I did. And it just so happened that I had undivided attention because it was just me waiting to go back out on assignment, and so I dropped down quick and deep into the Bitcoin rabbit hole, which took me, on a path towards trying to, understand what was going on in the world from a macroeconomic, geopolitical, and everything else perspective.
Just to clarify, then, Ben, you got into Bitcoin April of 2020, essentially.
Yeah, that's right. And so April of 2020. Okay. Yep, that's it. I was in between
great timing
foreign service assignments. On the good advice of a buddy, I dipped in and then almost immediately dropped into the Bitcoin rabbit hole, and it hasn't let go of me since. So that was the beginning. I realized that this was more than just an alternative asset to play with and to trade. And I became increasingly convicted over time that this was going to change the world, and I wanted to be a part of that change. And so, going into my next assignment in Africa, which I knew at the time was going to be my final assignment, and that's kind of a separate, longer story. But I knew that my string of field tours, so serving overseas, was going to have to come to an end after my that following assignment, and so I knew that that was going to be a good time for me to end that career and go on to the next thing. So I think that God really brought Bitcoin into my life at the right time, because going into that last assignment, my mind and my heart were just very open to kind of study what this was and how my family was going to, how my future professional life was going to intersect with it. And so in that last assignment, which was a wonderful assignment, it was in Mauritania, which is a country in Northwest Africa, small team doing mighty things. But my spare moments were taken with listening to guys like you podcast on Bitcoin and geopolitics as they pertain to Bitcoin, macro economics, really trying to get a hold on what was going on in the world that Bitcoin kind of opened my eyes to. So that's kind of the short story. I could go, I think, on and on about that, but that then was what had me transition ultimately to a Bitcoin career.
Okay, very cool. And so since then, you've gotten involved in this startup doing Bitcoin mining, and I guess you had already quite a bit of experience in some of these developing countries, developing economies, and you're bringing that to the forefront with there's mining ventures in Africa, if I understand right. So I imagine some of your experience with the foreign service really played into that. What is it's Bridger blockchain, and what do you guys do? What stage are you at, and kind of where do you see this going?
Yeah. Bridger Solutions is the name of the company, and the namesake is a guy named Jim Bridger, who is an incredible frontiersman and pioneer of the Great American West back in the 1800s. And we feel like we're in keeping with his spirit and what we're trying to do in Africa with Bitcoin mining. We are focused on Africa almost exclusively, although we remain open to opportunities in other emerging markets. But essentially, what we're doing right now is seeking opportunities to monetize stranded or wasted renewable energy wherever that may exist in Africa, and that is literally all over the continent. And it was my background in Africa, my co-founder's background in Africa and other austere places that really made us understand and recognize the power of Bitcoin, but also the power of Bitcoin mining in these emerging markets in the global South. When you take a look into the energy situation in Africa, what you come out with learning is a pretty staggering statistic, and that is that more than 500 million people on the continent are still without electricity. And that is even more staggering when you realize that Africa arguably has the most abundant natural energy resources of any place in the world. And one thing that we learned when I was in the Foreign Service, when my co-founders were in the military serving in Africa, is that a lot of those natural resources have actually been developed, and there is energy infrastructure that is converting those natural energy resources into electricity. The problem is that a lot of that energy infrastructure is dislocated from demand. So think about a wind farm in the Sahara Desert that is in the perfect place to take advantage of the best wind conditions in the world, but it's 200 miles or 300 miles from the nearest population center or industrial consumers that can take advantage of that electricity.
Does that come a lot from the Belt and Road Initiative with China?
Dude, that's a fantastic question. And that kind of gets right at what I was going to mention, is that these projects got to these places because of the Belt and Road Initiative that the Chinese have embarked on over the last number of years, but also from projects that have been financed by the World Bank and the IMF, from U.S. development agencies, from European development agencies. The one that I'm thinking of, and one of them that I'm thinking of in Northwest Africa, which is in the middle of the Sahara Desert, was essentially a gift from a Gulf Arab country, and it was kind of the patronizing development project with strings that said, "Hey, you're a wonderful Muslim country partner. Here's $50 million or $80 million for this renewable energy project. Just make sure you remember us as you vote on the GCC and at the United Nations." And round we go. And that's, I mean, listen, those projects can work, but in this instance and in lots of instances, you have a project that seems to be completed, but that last mile, which is an extraordinarily challenging last mile, is the transmission infrastructure to make sure that electricity actually gets to off-takers, actually gets to people who need that electricity. And so there's a project that I'm thinking of that is 120 megawatts of wonderful potential wind energy. And how much do you think is going to off-takers or to consumers or people who need it?
Less than 3%.
Zero.
Oh my gosh! Come on,
No,
I knew it was low, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So
I'm kind of curious,
that's
right?
an extreme example.
Sure.
But there there are lots of projects, similar projects from wind to hydroelectric that have a pretty extraordinary stranded or wasted energy profile to them. Sorry, Matt.
Fascinating.
So I'm curious. No, you're good. You're good. I'm glad you finished. So I'm curious, right? Bitcoin mining, you're taking the energy. Is any part of your startup and your initiatives around doing that last mile part, or are you saying there's wasted energy and I'm going to come and take it because no one's using it? I'm curious how, and maybe just in general, I'd like to imagine that you're also, maybe some of this is altruistic in that you'd like to help the African people as well. And so I'm curious, between the energy component, which you just mentioned, are you doing anything to get that to the consumer, or even besides that, how are you trying to help the people there?
Yeah. So that's a great question, Matt. And going back to the original question of kind of where we are as a company and how we're going about our business, we're the little engine that could. We're three guys that have what we think is a good skill set and experience that kind of uniquely positions us to get some of these deals across the line in difficult places to do business. What eventually will have to happen for transmission infrastructure to connect energy sources to consumers, to retail and industrial off-takers is an extraordinary amount of capital. And so that's not going to be where we start, but that is going to be, I believe, and we're already seeing it in pockets, the future of Bitcoin mining. And so, there's really kind of a couple of pillars of Bitcoin mining opportunities the world over, but I'd say specifically in Africa. And one would be these larger scale projects, and those are projects that pertain to a state utility, so government projects, government assets that are going to be in that 100 megawatt and up range, and the ones that need transmission infrastructure need, in some cases, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars in order to finance that transmission infrastructure. And that exceeds even state capacity. And so what I think is going to be very, very interesting to watch, and ultimately it's going to be the decision of sovereigns that are selling this power to Bitcoin mining companies. But you have, for the first time for a lot of these projects, in a customer of the energy, in the customer being Bitcoin miners, a revenue stream for no bid, otherwise wasted energy that can monetize that energy and then be used to build out that transmission infrastructure and get it to people. And I think that governments will elect to do that to a degree because that answers a significant demand of the population, and thus solves political issues that these sovereigns have. That's not going to be where Bridger Solutions start. We're going to start smaller. We're potentially going to be able to pave the way for some bigger entities to do that kind of work, hopefully. But where we're most excited is where we can really help the local population and solve problems. And that's kind of why we're in it. I mean, we're not making, we're in that startup life right now. We're spending money. We're not taking it in. And we're doing that because we believe in it. We've got a vision, and we came from a background where service and purpose and mission was a big component of what we did and what motivated us. And now it's kind of that, but even more so in a different way. We saw and tried to attend to, in a diplomatic and military mechanism, a lot of the problems in Africa and other difficult places as we were trying to secure core national security interests. And a lot of those problems we weren't able to solve because they weren't cutting to kind of the core, social, economic, political, financial issues that these countries and these people face. So it's an opportunity for us to continue to serve. But what we believe we're able to do now is actually kind of chop away at some of those root level issues. So an example of where we think we're going to be able to make a tangible difference are in smaller projects. And so if you guys indulge me, I'll tell you a little bit about projects that are underway. Not us, but a partner. I call a partner because all Bitcoin miners in Africa right now call themselves partners because there's so few of us and there's so much to do. But you guys might have heard of Gridless, which is a Kenya-based Bitcoin mining company. Connor, Matt, I'm not sure, you guys might have met Eric. He was at Thank God for Bitcoin in Miami. Spoke there. Big white guy with a beard. Anyhow, what they are doing is essentially pioneering into the mini grid electricity production space. And so I spoke to earlier, the fact that there are at least 500 million Africans without access to electricity. Most of those, as you can imagine, are in the rural countryside and way away from grids that are around urban areas. And so what we need are a proliferation of mini grid electricity production projects. There's right now just a tiny percentage of what is needed. The problem is that even though there's grant money, development agencies provide non-dilutive capital, uh, you know partner countries will step in and fund projects. But if you can't make a mini grid pencil out from a financial perspective, meaning that it can bring in enough income to sustain it over 5 to 10 years, then it doesn't make sense for the energy producer to set up that mini grid, even if they have access to development money. Very difficult, business, because at the end of the day, charity is great, but if you're talking about trying to solve a problem that needs to basically kind of keep itself going, maintain its own momentum over time, you need a market incentive behind it. And so what's really cool is we've seen, Gridless is the first to do it, and they're on project number 4 as they go in and they partner with mini grid companies, and they operate or they work as what's called an anchor tenant. So the first resort customer that mini grid company can count on to be a paying customer of the electricity. They do an analysis of how much electricity the community around that mini grid is going to need. Gridless has access to that energy, shares the revenue with the mini grid energy producer. That revenue that the energy producer generates means that he's got a solvent business, and he can actually, in most cases, lower the price of electricity to consumers of that electricity in the villages around them. And as time goes on, and as the communities that need that energy are bringing onto the power source more energy hungry things like refrigerators and freezers, stuff that requires more energy flow. Bitcoin miners, as a interruptible, location agnostic energy off taker, can either say, hey, well, now it's time to move on to that next site so that we can help finance another one of these for another set of communities, or kind of curtail its energy consumption so that more energy can go to consumers that energy. So it's this incredible story, which I think we're going to hear more of, because it's not only going to be gridless. It's going to be gridless. It's going to be Bridger. It's going to be other companies are working on it. It's going to be the many grid energy companies themselves. It was pretty awesome a few weeks ago. We were chatting about entered into negotiations for a prospective project in East Africa with a mini grid company, and we found out that they weren't advertising it, but they had become a Bitcoin mining company as well, because that's what makes their project work. That's what allows them to be solvent. That's what allows them to stand up more of these. So what we need is more of that. And so Bitcoin mining as that first and last resort off-taker of energy, that is a good consistent paying customer, is going to help mini grids proliferate at, not a little bit more. It's going to be 100x. It's going to be 500x, because there is so much territory and so many people to cover that need access to electricity. And that's going to be a big part of what unleashes human potential in Africa, which, by the way, is absolutely the future of our humanity. Our demographics are going the wrong direction in most of the West and in China. Africans are still having babies at a pretty good clip, and they've got a lot of natural resources. They've got a lot of territory. The population is growing at a staggering rate. So this is incredibly important work for the world, and it's just exciting to kind of be a part of it.
Thank you for giving us that high level detail. One thing that really kind of just poked me was like, oh man, how many of those those entities that were establishing what were quote unquote renewable energy sources, just trying to check an ESG box to say that they did it without actually bringing it to the finish line. It just speaks to that in an overwhelming capacity, and it's just unfortunate because it's like that's literally what they do, right? It's checking an ESG box off essentially.
And a lot of these folks, Brandon, are the same ones that are just throwing out all kinds of Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, in particular FUD. Bitcoin mining is going to boil the oceans. Such a high consumer of electricity, when in fact, just from the inside now, I'm increasingly convinced that Bitcoin mining is going to do the opposite. It's now a market incentive to scour the earth for low and zero cost energy. What is low and zero cost energy? It's renewable energy. It's solar, it's wind, it's hydro, it's nuclear. And that is what is going to, green the world. By the way, Africans still absolutely need fossil fuels, and it's just a travesty to hear folks, in Europe and other places say that Africans need to curtail their energy use when we have 500 million Africans that don't have access to electricity. So that's that's politics. But what is exciting is being part of an ecosystem that is, not really talking that much. It's building towards a better future, and the proof is in the pudding. So what Eric and Gridless are doing, they're backed by Jack Dorsey and Stillmark. They just published a blueprint on how they do what they do and how other companies need to go, and do the same. So that's super neat, but it goes beyond that. I mean, it's what Bitcoin mining is doing to mitigate methane venting and methane flares through the innovation around electrification of methane as a byproduct of oil and gas operation.
Yep.
Oil and gas operations is staggering. I mean, the numbers that are coming out suggest that within a year and a half, the methane mitigation from the Bitcoin mining industry will take the industry potentially to the first carbon negative industry in the world. So it's going to be neat to watch this unfold, to watch this happen. Another really cool thing that's happening may happen in Africa soon, and it can happen in other parts of the world, are how Bitcoin mining can finance the technology that we have to convert waste to energy. So think about your stinkiest, nastiest, polluting landfills in your biggest, most polluted cities of the world and in Africa that then become clean sources of renewable energy and are which is used to further decentralized hash rate and secure the Bitcoin blockchain. I mean, it's just incredible. So it's a really neat industry to be a part of.
Well, they did that in Texas where they used the flare gas for oil drilling. That was like a big article on CNBC. That was really cool. And I don't know, not to steal Connor and Matt's thunder, but I'm just curious. So when you get these transmissions established for these mining fields, what is it basically? Is it like kind of a camper filled with a bunch of ASIC miners, or what essentially is it? I'm assuming that the more mobile you are, the more ground you'll be able to cover. But I'm be really curious from the infrastructure standpoint of that, and where the ASIC miners come into play here.
Yeah, no, great question. If I had John on with me, he'd give you a better answer. But you got me, so you're gonna have to deal with me.
As good as you can do.
I'm the BD, strategy, big idea guy.
Yep,
but I think I know enough to give you a decent answer.
It's okay. I'm not a miner either, so I won't hold anything against you.
This is it brings up a good point. In my mid 40s, a career transition like this has been good for the soul because it forces humility. And I tell you what, the learning curve is massive. Trying to keep up with younger, smarter people than me is wonderful, but it's humbling. To give you a sense, I mean, depending on certainly the scale of the project, right? You're going to have different infrastructure needs. But let's say there's a 1 megawatt Bitcoin mining project, and we need to get miners on that energy. That's going to be a containerized solution. So that could be a container from Hampton Roads, area of the East Coast of the United States, or from Hong Kong that moves to name your port that we needed to hit in Africa. Probably a 40-foot with the number of miners that you're going to need on to mine efficiently off of a megawatt. You're looking at 250-ish miners on a megawatt of power. Of course, that is going to be dependent on the kind of miners that you want to use and the conditions that the miners are going to be operating in. But that very container could be the container that is where the miners will actually the data center and the miners will operate. And so you would offload.
That's sweet.
Yeah, you would offload, work with the energy producer to step down the power if needed. Make sure that you've got first the substation if it's coming from a bigger energy source, but the transformer in place. Make sure that all of the electrical engineering stuff that I am not going to venture into with you guys is done correctly, and away you go. And of course, it's going to be more complex than that. One of the things that we've learned a ton on is from other miners and potential partners in the mining industry that have just been a huge blessing to us and want us to be successful. So they've shared a lot of their lessons learned, and not many folks operate mining data centers in some of these tough spots in Africa. So temperatures, humidity, level of rainfall, the security that you have to set up around it, how you need locals to be hired and trained to help you, operate and maintain. All of those factors play into setting up an operation in Africa. But that's going to be the case until you probably scale beyond 2 or 3 megawatts. Those containerized solutions.
Sure.
And then if you're working on 50 tens of megawatts, 50 megawatts plus, then you're looking at kind of what you see in Texas. You've got your own infrastructure, your own substations, your own buildings that you need to construct. You're going to need more land, and all of that becomes more complex, especially in some places in Africa.
No, most definitely. Thanks for giving some insight into
Sure.
that. I worked in global trade management and logistics for a couple of years, so I know the container game and ports way too familiar with them. I don't want to go back to that personally. So
Brandon, you gotta
just hear
drop me your WhatsApp.
Like,
we might have to pepper you with some questions as we go forward.
I'm an open book, but man, that's just that many miners on a container would scare me, especially if I ended up in Suez or something like that. I'd be like, oh man, that'd be the worst. That just gives me the heebie-jeebies. Just thinking
Murphy.
about that.
You know who Murphy is? Murphy's Law. Murphy loves situations like that.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, or Maersk, Alabama, all over again. You never know. Like that. You never know.
Yeah. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around the business model.
Oh God.
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the business model here a little bit, but correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm gonna repeat what I understand about it, and then you can add on a little bit there about maybe what some of the incentives are driving. So it sounds like Brandon said, there's these massive kind of financial aid, ESG initiatives that have funded and financed some of these energy projects in Africa that are not making it to their final destinations because they don't have enough of the infrastructure to really support those things. So you guys can come in, and some of these other Bitcoin mining companies that are seeing similar opportunities and take advantage of some of those resources for Bitcoin mining. And then the turnaround is that the African countries already can't use this energy, without having the final steps kind of in place. So until those days come, I assume they own these power plants of some sort, and there's some sort of negotiation that goes on with these countries to use those resources. So in turn, they're able to take advantage of the capital, the investment that you guys are making into purchasing that power, and then that's getting turned around to support their economies, support some of their development as well. Is that more or less what's going on here, and why Africa is like such a prime destination for some of these new Bitcoin mining opportunities?
Yeah, Connor, I think that's about right. I think what countries are going to, leaders of countries and their state utilities are going to learn as they go over the next few years. We're at it's very early days. I only know of one state utility or kind of nation state level Bitcoin or prospective Bitcoin mining operation on the continent right now. But what I think we're going to see is we're going to see the first larger operations, Bitcoin mining operations, take place where you have a large amount of mostly hydroelectric energy, but some other energy mix as well, that's dislocated from demand. So think 600 megawatt hydroelectric facility in the middle of the jungle that is able, obviously, to provide energy to outlying villages, but maybe that takes up 100 to 200 megawatts of their energy if they've got some industrial consumers as well, traditional mining operations, what have you, but an enormous amount of stranded energy. And so what is going to be, what already is, but countries like to see other countries go first, very attractive, is the ability to do something with that remaining energy that was otherwise stranded, otherwise wasted. And so, where they would just turn turbines off because they don't have off takers. Let's turn those keep all those turbines on. You sell to a Bitcoin mining company at a low price, which is why the Bitcoin mining company is going to go to that energy source. And let's say, when you're looking at energy at scale, 100 megawatts plus, that is at 2 to 3 cents a kilowatt hour, a massive revenue stream for some of these energy companies, especially if it's U.S. foreign direct investment denominated in U.S. dollars, which, even though we know the U.S. dollar has some problems, it's considered a hard currency by a lot of these countries, and they need it. So I think that's going to be step one. And then, as I said before, guys, sovereigns can do what they want with that revenue, right? So, I'd love to say that all of that would be folded back into the infrastructure that's needed to transmit the energy to more people, and I think some of that will happen, but that will be uneven, and some of that revenue might find its way in people's pockets as opposed to serving the common good. But I think increasingly it's going to go to solve problems that sovereign nations need to solve with a steady revenue stream, and that's a big deal for African countries that have been, over the last 70 years, dependent on external actors for infrastructure, for projects that can be set up, that can benefit their country, that they actually don't have control over. So what I think, and this is actually, I'm writing a piece on this, what I think we're going to see is that as these first larger projects move forward, there will be sovereigns, there will be African countries that realize that they can do their own Bitcoin mining operations. They can monetize that energy. They'll, contract with folks that can do that very capably, with them. But they will take that revenue not as fiat, but as Bitcoin, because that's going to be a far better return for those countries, and the way that they're really going to optimize the monetization of their natural resources. So that's super exciting from a nation states that were arguably not really sovereign for the last number of decades, to claw back sovereignty based off of the natural resources that are within their borders. So anyway, that gets a little into that theoretical geopolitical sphere, but that's my old world, and that that's the kind of stuff that I just love thinking about.
Yeah, I think I think that's like a great future, imagining some of these countries, shifting more and more to a Bitcoin standard. But one thing I just wanted to make very clear for some of our listeners is we hear about, a lot of these foreign investment projects, and it seems a lot like companies are more or less taking advantage of these, countries who maybe have a lesser economy and you can get cheap power from them. But the key difference here is what you guys are doing is essentially, it's not just that this is stranded power, it's that these companies and these sovereign nations are unable to generate, the profit incentive to basically expand their infrastructure, to a place where they can, begin to see development. So you guys coming in here and taking, taking some of that stranded power allows them to then hopefully, in the best of worlds, invest more into their economies and more into their infrastructure, and in turn promote their countries, which is a great thing to do. It's not, you're not directly it's not a charity, but at the same time, there's a lot of benefits to these local economies with these types of businesses. So I imagine you don't imagine yourself as a charity, but you still see those aspects to it, right?
We're not a charity. We've got to run a business that is a profitable enterprise and grow that business, and in doing that, we're going to create value, we're going to create opportunities, we're going to create jobs, and we're going to create revenue streams for from the government level to local communities level. And I think we can do a lot of good along the way. I know we're running up on time, but it's top of mind for me right now. We are kind of in latter stages of negotiation with in a West African country, working with a local community that has access to hydroelectric power, because they were the community that was displaced when this massive hydroelectric facility was built in this part of West Africa 50 years ago. And it's the story that you can't make up, but it's true, and that these communities that were displaced by, ironically, an energy producing hydroelectric facility didn't get any of that energy for a long time. So this community, thankfully, now has access to a good portion of that energy, and they have it for free. In fact, they have an abundance of it. And so we're talking to them, and this would be a small project where we would purchase the excess that they don't need for their local economic activities at a rate that makes really good sense for us. And we would go in there and immediately do some projects that help the community. Like, for example, they've got a circuit breaker or a couple circuit breakers that don't work properly and cause their electricians all kinds of problems. They can't get help from the locality or from the government or even from the hydro facility. And this is crazy. I found this out yesterday, but one of the workers was actually electrocuted and died because of it. So this is a $4,000 fix. It's nothing. But they've lived with this because they're a community of such little means. And so if we're able to get this across the line, it's not a big project, but the revenue that they would generate from selling their excess energy to us is a game changer for their local communities. And we've already had conversations with them on how they can best kind of use that to invest back into their communities. And it's an exciting conversation to be on a call with the head of the tribal council and to hear from them how excited they are and what this can bring to them. So that's just a small example of what we hope we can do a lot of.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's awesome.
As you mentioned, we are running out of time. I do want to ask, since we are a Christian podcast, we met you at Thank God for Bitcoin. Especially with your, I think you have a unique perspective from this geopolitical standpoint. At Thank God for Bitcoin, I feel like there was a lot of, fix the money, fix the world, talk. And so I don't know, what's your take? Do you see, is Bitcoin going to Christianize the world? Is Bitcoin, is it simply just rooting out, this sin of fraud? What's going to be the impact of this? Is it going to, how will it help Christians? How can Christians, help push it in the right direction?
Yeah, guys, we need another hour. I don't think we have it.
Yeah. No.
But the first 2 hour episode.
Let me take a stab at it. Yeah, that's right. First, I love my Bitcoin maxi brethren that say fix the money, fix the world, and I think that charitably is that the right spirit of how we need to move forward. But I think as Christians, we know that nothing is going to fix this world except for Christ. And Bitcoin is a gift from God. I think that it's going to, we'll look back in history and realize that it was one of the great innovations, and that it was an innovation that helped to set people free in ways that they weren't otherwise, especially in impoverished parts of the world where people are disconnected from the global economy. Africa, other places, Southeast Asia, Latin America. But the only one that's going to fix everything is God, and is going to do it on His timetable. I think Bitcoin can make things a lot better, and as Christians, in our mission to try to be better people and better communities and better businessmen and more like Christ every day. That's the objective, right? Let's make things better. But in this world of coming into being and passing away, which is kind of a way that Plato, used to, he would refer to the world. It's not going to be until, we're in communion with God that things are truly fixed, and that's going to be, after we leave this earth. But there's a Bible verse that has been on my mind for years, literally years, way before Bitcoin, and I never really understood why. And it's starting to make more sense. I think because of Bitcoin. Sounds crazy. Thank God for Bitcoin in Miami, and the conversations that we had was helpful. But I'll share with you the verse. It's James 5:12. And that verse is, above all, my brothers and sisters, do not swear, not by heaven or by earth or by anything else. All you need to say is a simple yes or no. Otherwise, you will be condemned. So where I think Bitcoin is part of that idea and part of that hugely important instruction that we have in the Bible is that Bitcoin is the instantiation of truth as best that we can, in truth and in truthful communication. And so when you read that verse, it can be a little confusing. Do not swear, do not take an oath. Is that what it's saying is bad or what we shouldn't do? I think what it's really just saying is that as Christians, we are to follow the model of Christ, and that is to speak truth and to communicate truth. And we don't need to swear by anything, because what comes out of our mouth, what we push out to the world should be able to stand on its own. You shouldn't have to worry whether that person took an oath to the Constitution or swore by whatever people swear by to try to prove that you are being truthful. And what Bitcoin is doing is modeling that in a way as an instantiation of divine truth through an immutable ledger. Is it perfect? No, but I do believe that it is increasingly something that we can count on as a form of immutable communication in terms of how we transact with each other and communicate each other through the transfer of value, through the transfer of money, essentially. And what fiat has become, unfortunately, is that promissory note, that oath. Like, you can trust me, you can trust this truth, because this is the promissory note that says, in God we trust. We believe that this is something that shows, that proves to you that there's something that is behind it. And as we have seen, and this isn't just the United States, this is throughout history, is that over time, human nature is not able to resist the temptation to inflate the monetary supply and basically make that mechanism a lie over time. So we've got this thing that came that appeared, in the world in 2008, and has now survived and hardened to become what I think is an earthly instantiation of this message in the Bible. And I'm still not particularly good at articulating it, but it strikes me very personally, because this has been a verse that I've never understood why the heck is always kind of resurfaced in my mind and heart over the years. And I think I'm getting closer to that. So anyhow, appreciate you guys asking that question and letting me talk about it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, this is great. Where can people follow you, follow what Bridger's doing? I think it's a fascinating story. I definitely want to follow it. So
yeah, so we should probably do better on our social media campaign. I came from I came from government. I got my LinkedIn account going just a year ago. I'm not even on Facebook. I'm a Twitter lurker. I don't have a Twitter, but we do have a website, bridgerbc.com. And if you're interested in learning more about who we are and what we're doing, and would like to participate in some way, we're very open to that. And in fact, it's been wonderful and a huge blessing to have folks reach out to us. There's a way to reach out on the website there, and then you can find me, Ben Kincaid and Bridger, and you'll find me on LinkedIn. But that's the only way. I'm a Luddite, I guess is the term for a guy that is not fully embraced all the things.
That's fair enough. But you were smart enough to embrace Bitcoin and build these incredible solutions, or at least start having those conversations and moving towards building those solutions for people that will ultimately benefit people in the long run, or so we hope. Nascent yet, but we'll be excited to watch your journey and see where it takes you. And we'll definitely keep tabs on it on the podcast, and hopefully we can have you on again sometime.
Awesome. I'd love that. Thank you guys for having me.
Awesome. Well, this has been the Crypto Conversion Podcast. We appreciate you all for watching or listening. Follow Ben, follow Bridger Solutions, and we'll hope to see you all on the next episode. Peace.